Morning, this is Brian. Today is Sunday, February 7th, 2021. I'm in the Cleveland National Forest, Santa Ana Mountains of Orange County, California. And I want to present a Spotlight on Trees episode today. Today's episode focuses on a very common chaparral shrub here, especially above 2,000 feet. And it's called Eastwood Manzanita, Arctostaphylos glandulosa. Now, Arctostaphylos glandulosa is divided into a ton of subspecies, ranging through its range from California all the way down to Baja. Today's focus is on the quote-unquote normal subspecies, Arctostaphylos glandulosa, subspecies glandulosa. That's the type found here in Orange County, California, and through much of its range. So that's going to be the focus on my video, is subspecies glandulosa. Very common here in the Santa Ana Mountains of Orange County and Riverside Counties. Also common through different subspecies incarnations up and down its range. So glandulosa refers to the glandular hairy foliage, which kind of has a slightly rough feel to it. You could feel some fuzziness, but also kind of like it's hard to describe, but it's just a gentle fuzziness, but it kind of has a slight glandular feeling to it, which is very typical of Arctostaphylos glandulosa. Not all subspecies have the same exact qualities of fuzziness on their leaves, so let's bear that in mind. So, like I said, I'm referring specifically to subspecies glandulosa, which is, I believe, the only subspecies found in the Santa Ana mountain range, and the only subspecies found in Orange County, California. So, with these manzanitas, you'll notice the way the leaves are somewhat vertically oriented. During times of the year, they're oriented to capture the sun to make the most out of photosynthesis during the wetter, rainier periods, like in the winter, early spring months. And a lot of times they'll orient their leaves to minimize transpiration during the dry seasons of summer and fall. So Eastwood Manzanita is typically a medium to quite large shrub, not typically reaching small tree status, but I guess occasionally that could be possible. And like most manzanitas, it has a reddish bark that is primarily smooth. You see here, it's kind of dark reddish brown. And like several species of manzanita, it forms a root burl. Now, if I can get down there, if you look at the base there, you can see where the trunks meet. In the middle, there's a huge conspicuous root burl. Sometimes you won't see it very well because it's buried under the soil, and then sometimes the top of the burl raises out. It's a big, huge woody mass that allows this shrub to resprout after fire and other mechanical damage to the top of the plant. So if this plant burns or this plant is chopped off, it will resprout from the bottom. Not all species of manzanita have root burls, but Eastwood Manzanita does. So Eastwood Manzanita is a very common member of our mixed chaparral communities. It's especially prevalent in the middle to higher elevations of the Santa Ana mountain range. Here's another specimen right here. And like most species of manzanita, they pre-form their flower buds. As you see here, this little mass here is a pre-formed flower bud for the spring. Here's another one right here, right where my finger's wiggling. My middle finger is wiggling it. That's a pre-formed flower bud. They are pre-formed the summer and fall months the year before it blooms. So these were likely developed during the fall and spring months of, the fall and summer and fall months of 2020. And they will bloom probably in March, April, or May of 2021. And the flower of the manzanita, of the Eastwood Manzanita, is pretty typical for your manzanitas, little bell-shaped white flowers. And for a picture of what a manzanita flower looks like, I'll refer you to my video from January 24th when I was hiking and saw a bigberry in bloom. The flowers are very similar. The only thing is bigberry manzanita blooms much earlier, usually towards January and February. These usually bloom more towards the earlier spring months, so probably next month, maybe April. And again, this is a perfect example of its habitat. Again, mixed chaparral. This is a very mature stand of chaparral, and you can see this area has not been disturbed very recently. Probably decades. That's why some of these shrubs are about 10, 12 feet tall, maybe even taller in some spots. So, Eastwood Manzanita, again, is known for its glandular hairiness. The kind of got whitish hairs on the twigs and some hairiness on the leaves. The hairs on the twigs are a little bit longer, and the hairs on the leaves, you kind of have to rub them to feel them, but you can kind of see a fuzzy look to them. That's how you can tell them apart from the other manzanita that's fairly common here, bigberry manzanita, which has smooth leaves. And that's Arctostaphylos glauca. But again, and typically Arctostaphylos glauca tends to be a little taller, a little bit more tree-like. But I have seen several specimens of Eastwood Manzanita attain pretty tall statures as well. Good places here in the Santa Ana Mountains to find Eastwood Manzanita. Here, I'm near Blue Jay Campground, near the San Juan Trailhead. So San Juan Trail is a great place to see them. Pretty much just about anywhere in the Santa Ana Mountains is a good place to find this manzanita. But there are extensive stands of it along Main Divide Road, the paved and the dirt portion of Main Divide Road, leading up towards the crest of the mountains. You'll find a lot of it near Santiago Peak. I know portions of that area burnt during the 2018 Holy Fire, so seeing them coming back to life from their root burls that'd be a good opportunity. But that area is closed for public travel for the foreseeable future. The upper Holy Gym Trail was covered in manzanita, and I think the eastern half of the switchbacks burnt, and the western half of the switchbacks received very little damage. So if that ever opens up, you'll get to see mature manzanitas that are really tall, and not as tall as this though, but they're just very densely packed on the south-facing slope on that hill leading up towards Main Divide. And there's lots and lots of Eastwood Manzanita there. So manzanitas, the name manzanita refers to a Spanish word, manzanita, which means tiny apple or little apple. And some manzanitas are supposed to taste like a tart apple. I've never tried eating a manzanita fruit, but I believe most species are supposed to be edible. And Eastwood Manzanita kind of has a small fruit. These are past ripe from last year. Very glandular, hairy drupe. It's kind of glandular and hairy, kind of like the leaves. And it kind of slightly looks like a little apple. The top of it's kind of sunken in. And it's just it's a kind of a greasy, kind of has a greasy skin on it. And it has a pit in the middle of it. So it's not a pome like an apple is. It's a drupe, a stone fruit with the stone seed in it. Here we go again with the pre-formed flower buds. And it's one of 4 species of manzanita found here in the Santa Anas. The other one I told you was bigberry manzanita, Arctostaphylos glauca. Then towards the Elsinore Mountains and Santa Rosa Plateau, you might find rainbow manzanita, Arctostaphylos rainbowensis. And on, I believe near, not that far from Santiago Peak, is a population of pinkback manzanita, Arctostaphylos pringli subspecies drupacea, meaning drupe forming plant, because again the fruit is a drupe. So the Pink-backed manzanita might look a little similar to Eastwood Manzanita, but something about the elongated structure of the twigs, the way the leaves kind of crowd, kind of grow along the twig. It's kind of hard to describe. I'd have to show you on a spotlight of that one, which I haven't done yet. And pink-back does not preform the flower buds. Does not preform the flower buds like Eastwood Manzanita does. So elevation range for Eastwood Manzanita, usually I find it above 1,500, 2,000 feet above sea level, and it can be found to over 6,000 feet in elevation. I don't think I've seen it up. I don't think I've seen it as high as 7K yet. But here, especially in the lower and mid elevation mountains, this is a very common companion, especially in chaparral, and sometimes in the understory of oak woodland, and occasionally mixing in with conifers like ponderosa pine, big-cone Douglas fir, coulter pine, incense cedar, and higher up maybe with sugar pine and white fir. But it definitely prefers the chaparral. In its lower elevations, you're probably more likely to see it on a north-facing slope towards the drier lower end of the chaparral. And in the higher end of the chaparral, you'll probably see it more on south-facing slopes. So it does grow on both slopes, but higher up it probably tends to grow more on south-facing slopes. And then we got one plant that can also be confused with manzanita in general is this plant here. The leaves are very similar looking to manzanita, and they grow similarly oriented, and they're very similarly shaped. So how do you tell the difference? Well, first off, this plant is called pale silk tassel. This is Garrya flavescens. Garrya flavescens. And how you tell Garrya flavescens from any species of manzanita, any species of Garrya will have oppositely arranged leaves. The leaves grow opposite each other on the twig. As you can see here, this one and this one are opposite one another. Oppositely arranged. And these are what the flowers kind of look like, these little tassels. These are the little tassels. That's where the name silk tassel comes from. So again, it's very similar to manzanita. However, manzanita has alternately arranged leaves. In other words, they alternate up and down the stem. As you can kind of see here, trying to see where I can get the best lighting for showing you the difference here. These leaves do not grow opposite one another. They alternate as you go up and down the stem. So they're alternately arranged. So silk tassel, oppositely arranged. Manzanita, alternately arranged. So this area is a very good spot to find Eastwood Manzanita. Most areas in the Santa Ana Mountains, especially above 1,500 feet and 2,000 feet, you'll likely come across this shrub at some point. Again, beautiful, venerable Eastwood Manzanita, Arctostaphylos glandulosa, subspecies glandulosa. So that was another episode of Spotlight on Trees. I hope you found this helpful in helping to identify some of our local flora here in Southern California. And I hope you found the video to be interesting, informative, and I hope to see you on the next episode, hopefully soon. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you later on for the next episode.